Before we jump into this topic, I thought it was really important to take pause and acknowledge parents that might be really struggling with a mental health crisis in their home, and know that it can be, I would imagine, a very scary place to feel lost at how to help your loved one. And when we get scared, we sometimes keep things to ourselves. And there would be no shame in knowing your gut telling you, I think this is bigger than we can handle, and know at the same time that there are always people there that can offer support, that there are so many things in life. Just because we gave birth to someone or they are our child, it doesn't mean that we have all the answers. And there is no young person that's struggling with a mental health crisis where it's directly related and the finger is being pointed at mom or dad. So I think that's really important, to pull some of the maybe self-blame and shame off mom or dad's shoulders, because it's really with a team of support that we make sense of things and learn to not have whatever this heavy weight is in our life be a burden that needs to follow us forever. One of the things that we know with mental health symptoms is they're often an expression of pain that doesn't have anywhere else to go. And so the skill of emotion coaching has really been developed and researched to show that actually digging down and talking about that pain and explicitly kind of identifying the feelings that might be involved with it and being able to listen to it and give it voice actually helps to lift off some of the weight that goes along with a symptom that feels really bossy in someone's life. There are so many things that happen to us as parents where we sort of feel at a loss of what to do next, and it's easy, and I think it's our instinct often to focus on the behavior. So it could be someone coming in after school and stomping up to their room and slamming the door, right? As a parent, don't do it, and how we're gonna react there. It could be a gut feeling that a parent has where their teenager might be isolating more and spending more time in a room. And we know that with adolescents, often retreating away from the family and spending more time on your own or reflecting and talking to friends is a really normal thing. But when a parenting gut is just like, I just don't know if he or she's in a really good place, that might be a space to use emotion coaching as well. And I think when we hear things that have us a bit worried, so maybe it's a young person that says, I hate my body. Why are my legs so big? We're put in a position where we've heard something or we sense something and we don't want to make it worse. We don't want to ignore it, but what do we do? And how do we talk about that stuff that's really uncomfortable? Because if we don't, that means that our young person is stuck having that thought and trying to make sense of it on their own. So know that, understanding kind of what's going on in the brain is an important part of why we emotion coach and how it can be so helpful. And so when someone is experiencing a big emotion, it is like a flood over their brain, and it impacts our whole body. And when we're at a place of being really escalated, it can feel pretty out of control, pretty overwhelming. And actually having someone step in and be able to acknowledge maybe what we're feeling, if they can be in a place of calmness, actually, believe it or not, helps to regulate a system. So it's called co-regulation. And so if I'm the person that's really angry or really escalated about something, having someone be able to identify what's going on and be with me so I can slowly start to make sense of things, acknowledge that what I feel is okay, and maybe get to talk about it a little bit more and have it listened to and validated, actually really helps to calm a body down so that that emotional brain gets more connected with the left side of our brain, where we're more logical and we can problem solve. So then I can maybe decide what I want to do next. But we know that teenagers in particular have lots of big emotions and can easily have emotional flares happening all over the place. So I'm going to give you sort of the skeleton and sort of skills to follow when it comes to emotion coaching, and then we'll put it into practice. So always the first thing we need to do is notice, number one. And so noticing it is picking up on that quiet person that's in their room. I'm noticing something. I just heard a comment about a body. I'm noticing something. Number two is actually identifying the emotion that might be underneath it. So instead of focusing on the behavior that we see, we're going to be kind of curious about it. What might be one of those underlying emotions that might be driving that comment? And so, we can emotion coach all sorts of feelings. Typically, when we talk about emotion coaching, it's the stuff that's harder to be able to make sense of. So it's the feelings of anger that we might have. It's feeling incredibly sad about things, maybe the things that we're fearful of or scared of, and maybe shame. And so we want to actually create some space to identify and maybe actually acknowledge being a human. This is a pretty normal emotion to have. Our world's really good at celebrating the good and focusing on the happy and the exciting, but we want to actually be able to have space to celebrate all the different themes and colors of who we are. And so it's calling out maybe what that emotion might be. And then the third step is to validate. And so even if it's something that offends us or scares us, to acknowledge, because we see it in our young person, that young person is alone thinking that. And so if someone for the first time says, "Are you feeling sad? You've been really different. I wonder if you're thinking about not wanting to be alive." Even though that can be obviously an incredibly scary place for any parent to be, by saying it out loud, it might give that young person a bit more permission to be able to sort of drop down the facade and be more honest and have more of a heartfelt conversation about how hard it is being them in that moment. And over again, when I meet teenagers, I have yet to meet a teenager that didn't say, "I just want my mom or dad to listen to me." They don't listen. And so that validation step is that teenagers ask, "Listen to me," without judgment. So I'm going to validate your experience. If that doesn't work, we can move to step 4. I wouldn't say it doesn't work, but if it lands really well, we can go to step 4, which is where we're meeting the need. So if someone's sad, usually we want connection and a bit of a cuddle. If you're angry, you're going to give someone a little bit of space. If you're scared, you might need some reassurance. And then often, again, we're at a place where if someone's really heard, they're maybe attended to in the way that they need. We don't have to do more. But if we need to, we can go to the 5th step, which is more like collaborative problem solving. So even though you're stuck in this place and you can't turn your homework off, your computer's open and you're not going to get it done in time, is there something that we can do so that you can get some sleep tonight? And so we always want to be not in a place of telling someone what they want to do, but more so coming from it in a place of, "I'm here to support you. Let's come up with something together." But sometimes things happen as parents where we actually do need to step in because someone is so overwhelmed and we need to turn their computer off and put them to bed because it's what's demanded of us. Teenagers over and over again, even children, little guys. "I wish my mom and dad listened to me the way that you do." This is my therapist role. Me as a mom, I'm not so great at listening to things all the time. But as a therapist, you're really in a role of reflecting back what someone is saying, validating their experience. "Oh my gosh, that totally makes sense." So I want to be heard and validated for my experience. And there are some big things that I do not want to have happen. So what doesn't feel like listening? Well, it sure doesn't feel like listening when my mom or dad turns it into a lecture, makes it about them, dismisses what I say, and starts to talk about all the good things and distract me away from how I'm feeling, tells me that I have no right to feel the way that I do, that look at how blessed your life is. There's no way that you could be so upset about this thing. And so in knowing what a teenager or a young person might want, we also have to look at what we know people do, because we're instinctively, this is kind of how we're trained to kind of jump into, what do we do if someone's really sad or really angry? I better discipline them so that they stop feeling that way. I want to minimize it because actually you looking so sad is overwhelming for my system. So maybe I want to shut it down because it's going to help me settle. But we're talking about emotions. So they're not good or bad. It's just there are different flavors that we get, and they're really, really vital pieces of information that we want to listen to. Our emotions, we feel them in our body, but they also, if we can identify them, there's always a need behind it. And so even something like anger, which people might say, obviously what we choose to do with the anger could be detrimental, or it could be more positive, but an emotion such as anger has so much energy to it and can be used, I'm going to say, to fuel all sorts of really important decisions, boundaries, new ideas, pushing cultures forward. And so we don't want to be shutting that stuff down. We want to be able to actually bring it up. And so, a theme that comes up for, again, like where we see symptoms develop in mental health diagnoses, often what's underneath some of the symptoms is feelings that were hard to contain, overwhelming, not accepted in my family, maybe just not accepted in myself. And my strategy was to push them down. I wasn't really conscious of it, but I thought if I just ignore this, I can move forward. And it works until it doesn't work. And then so this is the piece where digging around with some of the yuckier stuff, even though it might be your tendency to turn away from it, is actually part of the path forward to getting to a place of mental wellness and healing. Step 3 of emotion coaching, validation, is often the hardest part for people to get their heads around. So I might be sitting across from someone whom I totally care about, who's telling me that they hate themselves because of how they look. And to validate that kind of fear of being fat or the body that they're in might feel like, I can't do that. There's no way I can validate that fear, because what if I'm adding to it? What if my young person thinks by me saying this that I'm actually making it worse? And the truth is that if you get it wrong, this is how it works with thoughts. You could throw something out to someone, and if it's not a truth for them, just slides off. But if it's something that is their world and their reality, to actually have someone witness it and see it and make sense of something that you've kept to yourself, there's an absolute sense of relief, because now I'm not alone with this. So validation looks like I am making explicit what your inner world might be like. It looks like you're really scared. I can hear it in your voice. You're really upset and hate the body that you're in right now. This is such a hard place to be, and I know that you're not alone with it. I'm going to be here to help you, right? Is there anything else you want to say to me? So I'm not coming in to take it away. I'm not minimizing it. I'm not distracting away. I'm just acknowledging it as the truth in that moment. And from that place, there might be more tears and more things shared, but it's through being able to be with someone else and in a relationship and talk about this hard stuff that things get lighter. And so as a parent, or if I'm speaking to a parent Know that you will feel awkward. It's not an easy skill to learn. It feels really like a robot kind of using new language at first, but it's a piece that really helps take some of the shame and weight off a young person's shoulders. I'm going to walk you through another scenario, the one that I referred to at the beginning around some body dissatisfaction. So someone that might walk in after school or just be, walking around the kitchen, and you hear, like, I just hate my body. I'm not happy with how it looks. I don't like my thighs, or why don't I look like the people in my, some of my best friends? And in a moment like that, we know some of the pressures that are on our young people. We're aware of all the possibly toxic messages that our young people have. Think of our own history with our own body. Hearing a comment like that coming from a young person could feel like it's our worst nightmare come true. Or we hear it and we jump, like the shark music comes on in our parenting brain, and we jumped ahead to 10 years later, our kid's in a residential treatment program, family crisis. But if we can keep ourselves in this moment, we've had a little glimpse into a slice of this person's world. And how do we notice it? So I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to go, oh, sweetie, don't say stuff like that. Are you kidding me? You're the prettiest kid in your class, or whatever. It is not even truthful. And if I'm the person that's feeling really sad about the skin suit that I'm in and the pressures that are on me, to have someone minimize it like that, again, door slam for being able to talk to you about this stuff. And so take a deep breath as a parent, and you want to validate what you just heard. So I've noticed it, then I'm going to make a guess about what that person might be feeling. Sounds like you're pretty sad. You might say sounds like you're pretty bummed out, you're pretty overwhelmed, but at the core it sounds like sad. And how do we validate that sadness? And so if we can speak to some of the reasons why someone might feel sad, we don't know exactly what's happened, but a formula that we can use can be, I can imagine why you might feel so sad. Because you're a teenager that's growing up in our world that tells girls that they need to be a size 2 and a rock star at everything to just be okay. And you might be feeling pretty sad because you're someone that doesn't have a body that looks like the ones that you see on magazine covers and on your Instagram. And you might be pretty sad because lots of your friends are spending a ton of time, you guys are spending a lot of time sort of talking about bodies and body bashing other people. And maybe there's a little part of you that's not just looking at other people, but it's really, you've pointed the finger in on yourself. And I can imagine it could feel pretty overwhelming and pretty heavy to be walking around thinking that kind of stuff. And you might have someone that sort of like starts to show some emotion because you might have nailed what's going on for them. But to be able to just listen and again say, you're not in this alone. You're a human being, and it would be really almost impossible actually for anyone to be in this world without having some thoughts like that going through their systems. And I'm so glad that you're open to talking to me about it, or just know that I'm here to listen to you if you ever want to make sense of this stuff. So again, it's going into a conversation that you might not know how it's going to end, but to miss the conversation might allow a belief to get more internalized and become more of a pattern and more of a habit. And even with the most well-intentioned parents, we miss opportunities to validate emotions, and we lose our temper and get mad because someone's been rude to us, and we can always go back and make repair at any age. There are some emotions that are harder to I would say, kind of hold than others. So for sure, the being proud of something, being excited, feeling joy, giggling, curiosity. Very rarely do you ever want to spend less time with someone who's happy. We often are kind of pulled towards that, but some of the emotions that are harder to make sense of are the ones that, as our world, in our culture, we're not really given a ton of education or space to really know what to do with deep sadness or anger. And so it's emotion coaching gives space and language to be able to dip into the harder things. You know, just as I think parents, we need to have some ideas of what we might do to even support ourselves in this moment. So much of our attention is put on, well, how am I going to help others? And so there is nothing wrong with being kind to yourself, and almost think of it being like your own emotion coach. So if you are feeling escalated by something, your own amygdala flare is happening, your heart's beating, you're not sure what to do next, you're feeling like you're going to say something yucky, you don't have to respond right away. Take a moment to take pause to decide what you want to do next. So I always grab my body because I think it's often a good cue, but it might be putting a hand on your heart and one on your belly, which we know this vagal hold actually helps to promote a sense of calm in a body. I think it sometimes helps cue us like, whoa, hold back, let's think about what we want to do. But even pausing, and it might be taking in like 3 deep breaths. So a nice deep breath in and a slower breath out, doing that 3 times, and just reminding yourself that you're doing the best that you can. And then choosing to go into the conversation or make a, go up and make a connection, or maybe choosing to say nothing and revisiting it at a time when you think it will be, both people are better open and receptive to having a talk about something tough. A takeaway that I would have for people listening is to take pause, which usually means screens away from our face, to notice what's happening around you, and don't be scared to talk about the things that are not said out loud. And as a little part 2 to that, I think come from a place of like being curiosity and not knowing, and ask openly and honestly, what is it that you need from me that might help you decide that I'm someone that you can trust? And if there's something that I'm doing that's hurting you in any way, I want you to tell me, even if you know it's going to hurt my feelings, because I can actually take it.